All right, my next guest was Energy Secretary under President George W. Bush. He says he only sees upside in exporting that gas. He is Spencer Abraham, and he joins me right now. Secretary, good to have you on the program. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Maria. Good to be with you.
You know, this whole Ukraine situation has underlined the idea that we want to be independent with our energy needs, and we have a shot to do it in America. Do you think we will become energy independent and an exporter of oil and gas?
Well, I think we're moving in the right direction, and I think if you combine the U.S. and Canada and potentially Mexico, there's no doubt that in North America, we have the potential to get there. And I think we need to position ourselves, as you indicated, to be able to export also, because we have friends and allies around the world who would like to have a diversity of sources from which to obtain their imports rather than to depend on one or two countries, particularly ones that are either politically unstable or potentially adversarial.
Well, this all, this all goes back to the idea that we can do fracking, but we're not doing enough of it. We can transport oil from Canada via Keystone Pipeline, but we're not approving it just yet. What are your thoughts on this? Are we going to tap into the potential in America?
It's frustrating to watch the slow pace. And while I think the administration and Secretary Moniz can be complimented for having, for example, approved some of the licenses to export natural gas, there's no reason to have a whole backlog of these applications sitting over there at the Department of Energy. We should be moving them forward because who knows what the world's going to look like in another year or two. And the more of these facilities that get a chance to try to develop and to be operational, I think the better in terms of American flexibility, both for our own economy and for helping our friends.
Well, I think that's a great point. And the fact is when I talk to oil executives, they tell me the permitting process has become harder and harder, and all these permits are not being approved. Why? Is this all political?
Well, I think, that, we have an ongoing, long-standing debate about anything related to energy in this country. And in some states, California being an example, you have situations where the permit process is very slow for new development. And then we have the same kind of slowdown with respect to LNG exports. And, of course, the very well-known slow pace at which the decision on the Keystone Pipeline has progressed. And I think all of this combines to really to deny America an opportunity here, both on an economic front in terms of our own economic growth, but also to deny us an opportunity to really have a role in the world marketplace that could be even more robust and more important.
I want to ask you about Keystone in a minute. I'm going to get back to that for a second. But I'm getting a lot of tweets and posts and social media about gas prices. Secretary, let me ask you about that. What is the scoop on the price of gas right now? Why is it elevated?
Well, there's a lot of factors. You've come through a tough winter. You've got, a little bit of a factor that was mentioned before about ethanol. I think there was an expectation in terms of the renewable fuels supply that it would be higher than it was, and so that, that's put a little bit of increase as well. But I think that can level out. I mean, again, let's remember, if we had more development, we'd have lower prices because our supply would be stronger. And I think whenever we put a hold or an impediment in the way of development, we're inevitably going to sort of change the supply-demand equation.
Right. So do you think the president will approve Keystone?
I'm skeptical. I have to say he's had many reasons presented to him to do so, all of them good ones. I don't really feel the arguments against it have been very compelling, and now after the most recent studies, they're even less compelling. So it seems to me if he wanted to do it, if the administration thought it was the right thing, they would have acted, and I'm shocked they haven't. And with an election now looming on the horizon, it seems even less likely. And it's extraordinarily unpleasant because, let's face it, these resources somehow are going to get to market. The question is, will the United States benefit, or will they be in some way exported in a different direction into the world marketplace through Canada and out into the Pacific or some other exit point? It's been a wrong decision, I think, to delay this, and I think it will be costly to Americans in terms of jobs and our economy that we have delayed it, or if we don't ever go forward, it'll be an even greater cost
Right.
to our country's economy.
All right, we want to take a short break, Secretary, and then come back because 19% of our electric power actually comes from nuclear sources. We'll talk about that. And electric power, we are becoming increasingly dependent on other countries to sustain the source, though. We will hear more on this from Energy Secretary Abraham when we come right back. Welcome back. I'm back now with former Energy Secretary Spencer Abraham. Secretary, while the energy revolution in the U.S. is focused on oil and nat gas, you say we need to put more focus on nuclear energy. It provides 19% of our electric power already, right?
Right. And, you know, it's been a stable source of baseload energy for many years, and we need to keep it in place.
Well, I mean, what about the risks out there? You know, when we talk about nuclear, of course, nuclear accidents come up, and we talk about the risks. So how much of a downside risk is there, in your view, and should we be worried about that?
Well, first of all, no. I think the United States has the strongest safeguards and safety procedures of any country on the planet that has nuclear energy, and we've demonstrated that for decades. Second, the simple fact is that about 20% of our power supply for electricity comes from nuclear. It's a very consistent, dependable source of efficient power supply. And, you know, during this recent polar vortex, the most efficiently operating source of electricity was nuclear, operating at about 95%. And you just can't replace that easily, nor should you. And the other thing is we have 100, I mean, this is really, I think, a time to look at what we've got. 104 or so plants. We need to keep them operational and provide the kind of economic stability that they need to keep functioning, because these are clean operating power sources. Nothing cleaner. And because they're in place and they provide baseload dependable energy, we need them.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think that there is a debate about whether or not they are clean. And you know, we can't do this in a clean way, because the whole idea of coal has for a long time been talked about as dirty, pollution, and that's sort of the one of the risks.
Well, we've always had balance in our electricity supply, with nuclear providing about 20% of essentially emission-free energy. And not only does it do that, but it also provides in local communities an enormous economic engine because of the employment of large numbers of people across the country. And if you took nuclear out of the equation, you're almost certainly going to have to replace it with, at least in part, if not completely, with coal and with natural gas. Now, that means more emission of carbon. It means more emission of other products.
And is that why people are talking about the alternative renewable energy space? I mean, solar, LED. How does that play into all of this?
Well, you know, renewables are important, but we have to keep it in context. They're not a baseload source, and they're a very tiny percentage of our power mix today. Now, over the long term, we hope to see that grow, but it's not going to grow large enough to completely replace any of the others. I mean, it just will be we want an all of the above strategy, but nuclear has to be part of it. And I think we've too long sort of ignored the role of nuclear and the need to give nuclear energy in that sector the support it needs to sustain itself strongly.
So, you know, in light of all that you're saying, the fact that we have this great opportunity in nuclear, we have this great opportunity in natural gas and in oil in this country, shouldn't oil prices, energy prices in general, be much lower than where they are right now, given the potential?
Well, what we would hope is that the economy as a whole would begin to take off, and if it does, demand would go up. So I'm not sure if the prices would go down in a strong economy, but in an economy that's stagnant, then yes, prices ultimately will, if we allow the energy revolution to take place. And that means taking some of the shackles off of the industry and allowing more development, Keystone Pipeline, the sustainability of nuclear energy, and all of these other sources to really have the opportunity through a free market to thrive.
And at the end of the day, this is a job creator, right? I mean, how can you characterize what kind of job creation we might see if, in fact, all of those sources are utilized and we get the construction going?
it's a lot. And, you know, people sometimes try to make
What's a lot?
Well, I won't give you a number. I'll just say that it can be the engine. Every single major revolutionary change in terms of the economies of the United States and other countries has typically taken place coexistent with a real boom in energy. And I think the same would happen here if we let it happen.
All right, we will leave it there. Spencer Abraham, great to have you on the program today. We appreciate
Thanks.
your time.
Good to be with you.
And
Thank
to you,
you,
former Energy Secretary there.